Catherine and Henry's honeymoon was not your run-of-the-mill first month of marriage affair. Instead of just a month of bliss, they turned it into a marathon of merriment. Imagine a honeymoon so long it could have its own Netflix series. The royal couple and their court were practically living in a fairy tale, hopping from one grand feast to another. Catherine wrote to her father, probably with a little glitter on the letter, to describe their constant celebrations. If Henry's life were a musical, he'd be singing and dancing through jousts, hunting and birding. Who knew innocent pastimes could be so exhausting? Henry was so thrilled about his adventures that he wrote to Ferdinand about their escapades. It sounded like a travel blog, minus the Instagram selfies. They even embarked on a progress, which was basically a royal road trip. Talk about a staycation in style. During these joyful times, love was clearly in the air, and Catherine soon found herself with a little royal bun in the oven. By November, the kingdom was buzzing with the news. Henry proudly announced the impending arrival of the next royal heir, and the realm probably threw a baby shower that could rival any modern-day extravaganza. Christmas was celebrated at Richmond, and Henry was feeling bold. Like a kid who's finally allowed to play in the big leagues, he decided to join a tournament. It was his chance to prove he wasn't just a king, but also a knight in shining armor. Literally. The tournament was a big deal for Henry, who had previously been kept away from such dangerous games due to concerns about the royal succession. But with a baby on the way, Henry was confident enough to risk a bit of jousting. After all, what's a little danger when you're about to become a dad? Henry's debut in the tournament was nothing short of spectacular. He managed to break lance after lance, earning cheers from the crowd. It was like he was the medieval version of a sports superstar, and the audience couldn't get enough. As Henry basked in his newfound sporting glory, the kingdom celebrated. A fruitful marriage was seen as a prosperous one, and the people were overjoyed at the prospect of a new heir. It was as if the entire kingdom was throwing a never-ending party. While the court was busy with celebrations, the joyous news of Catherine's pregnancy was the cherry on top. The decision to marry Catherine seemed to be paying off splendidly, and everyone felt a sense of victory. In the end, Henry and Catherine's honeymoon was not just a time of love and laughter, but also the beginning of a new chapter for the kingdom. They turned what could have been just a honeymoon into an epic royal saga filled with joy, anticipation, and perhaps a few medieval dad jokes. Catherine of Aragon's life at the English court was filled with unexpected theatrics and drama, much like a Tudor reality show. King Henry VIII, ever the master of disguise, attempted to keep a low profile during an incognito ride with his aide, William Compton. However, the king's cover was blown when Compton got injured, causing a stir among the people who feared for Henry's safety. Imagine the collective sigh of relief when Henry revealed himself, helmet off, akin to a medieval superhero unmasking to reassure his fans. The royal fun didn't stop there. The court moved to Westminster, where Henry and his entourage, dressed as Robin Hood and his merry men, burst into the Queen's chamber in a noisy display. While intended to entertain, the surprise left Queen Catherine and her ladies as startled as if they'd just seen a ghost at a Halloween party. One might wonder if Catherine was secretly rolling her eyes at her husband's adolescent antics. Perhaps she thought, why did I marry the king, not the jester? Amidst all this merriment, tragedy struck. On January 31st, Queen Catherine suffered a miscarriage, losing a daughter. The event was kept under wraps, known only to a select few, including the king and some close attendants. Despite the loss, a bizarre twist followed when Catherine's physician believed she was still pregnant, even as her menstrual cycle resumed. It's a wonder he didn't prescribe leeches to cure everything while he was at it. As Shrove Tuesday approached, a day synonymous with pancakes and partying, it also marked the last big celebration before Catherine's expected confinement. Henry, never one to shy away from a grand gesture, led a visibly pregnant-looking Catherine into the festivities. The situation was as awkward as a turkey wearing a tuxedo to a vegan dinner. Catherine's time at court was a whirlwind of highs and lows. From Henry's playful masquerades to the deeply personal challenges she faced, her life was a tapestry of joy and sorrow. Her resilience in the face of such trials was admirable, akin to a queen holding her ground in a chess game where the pieces seemed determined to leap off the board. The court was a place of constant performance, with Henry often the leading man in his own drama. Catherine, on the other hand, played her role with grace, even as the script sometimes veered into unexpected territory. One might say she was the calm in the storm of royal shenanigans. Despite the theatrics, Catherine's challenges were very real. The loss of a child and the subsequent confusion about her health were no laughing matter, even amidst the jesters and jousts. Her strength was as enduring as a knight's armor, though her heart must have felt the weight of her crown. In the end, Catherine's story is one of endurance. She navigated the turbulent waters of Henry's court with dignity, even as the waves of fate crashed around her. Her experiences remind us that history is not just a series of events, but a collection of human stories, each with its own mix of joy, sorrow, and the occasional knight in shining armor, or in Henry's case, a merry man in Kendal Green. Through it all, Catherine stood firm, a figure of grace amid the chaos. Her story is a testament to the strength of spirit that can thrive even in the most unpredictable of circumstances. As the court played on, she held her place, a queen in every sense of the word. The tale of Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's first queen, is as grand as a royal banquet with a side of drama. Picture this. Catherine, pregnant and radiant, was seated on the royal throne at a lavish celebration. Henry, ever the showman, opted to mingle rather than sit, spreading cheer like confetti. It was a public love letter to Catherine, showcasing his affection and pride. One might say he was the original king of PDA. Public display of adoration. As the month drew to a close, preparations for Catherine's confinement kicked into high gear. The court moved to Greenwich, a place dear to Henry, hoping his firstborn would make their debut there. On the 26th, a flurry of activity ensued with warrants for refurbishing the royal nursery. They even recovered Henry's own baby throne in crimson cloth of gold. Talk about a royal hand-me-down. The nursery was set to welcome the new arrival, complete with a wet nurse and 2 rockers. And guess who came out of retirement for the occasion? Mrs. Elizabeth Denton, Henry's own childhood lady mistress. She probably thought she'd traded diapers for retirement. Catherine's own apartment was a masterpiece of meticulous planning. The royal book dictated every detail for her confinement, ensuring everything matched in a single design. Figurative tapestries were a no-go, wouldn't want to give the queen or the baby any wild ideas. The room was snugly wrapped in fabrics, with only one window left uncovered for light. It was an opulent cocoon, complete with a cupboard full of gold and silver plates and an altar for prayer. One can only imagine the decorator's delight. More gold, you say? Right away, Your Majesty. In March, Catherine moved into her specially prepared apartment with a grand ceremony known as taking to her chamber. She partook in wine and spices with the court, perhaps a regal version of a baby shower. The Earl of Ormond, the Lord Chamberlain, called upon everyone to pray for a good hour, wishing Catherine a safe delivery. One might say medieval maternity care had its own flair, complete with well wishes and a hint of pageantry. So there you have it. A medieval royal pregnancy that was nothing short of a theatrical extravaganza. Catherine was wrapped in luxury, surrounded by well-wishers, with a throne, a daybed, and a gold-plated nursery waiting for her little one. It's a tale that makes modern baby showers look like casual brunches. In the grand tapestry of royal affairs, the new Spanish ambassador, Luis Carros, arrived to replace the disgraced Fuensalida. With much pomp and circumstance, a procession accompanied Queen Catherine to her chamber, marking the beginning of an exclusively female world for her until her delivery. The gentlemen of the court bid her farewell, perhaps secretly relieved to avoid the anticipation of royal childbirth. It's like saying goodbye to a cliffhanger episode of a royal reality show. Meanwhile, King Henry found ways to entertain himself, though Carlos was less amused by Catherine's condition. Despite not hearing of her earlier miscarriage, he noticed signs that made him doubt her pregnancy. His knowledge of gynecology seemed more robust than Catherine's own, leading to skepticism about the reality of her condition. It's like watching a mystery unfold where everyone but the main character knows the twist. As time passed, neither Catherine nor Henry saw any sign of the anticipated heir. Fray Diego noted that divine intervention had reduced the swelling, and alas, there was no child. All the preparations and ceremonies were in vain, leaving Catherine in a public spectacle of humiliation. It's like preparing for a grand feast, only to realize you've been on a diet the whole time. Carlos criticized those who believed a menstruating woman could be pregnant, urging the council to find a plausible explanation for the public. He feared the implications of Catherine being incapable of conceiving and suggested dietary improvements to regulate her menstruation. It's like trying to solve a mystery with a recipe book. You might not find the answer, but at least you'll eat well. In the end, Carroz's fears were validated as the court continued to wait for a royal delivery that never came. Amidst the armor and anticipation, the story unfolded more like a royal soap opera than a fairy tale. Perhaps the only thing delivered was a lesson in patience and a reminder that even in the grandest courts, life's uncertainties are inevitable.